Hey up everybody and welcome back. Well, if things look a little familiar to you, a touch of the deja vu's, it's because you may remember after the short video on the lubrication system I was going for lunch. Well, I'm back from lunch. That's how far out I am in things. Okay, so this is, as you see, is episode 19. Episode 17's only just gone up. 18 is, as they say, in the can. In fact, no, you've seen 18. So, well, you haven't. God, it's confusing, isn't it? Anyway, let's not get into that. Let's get into the bike. Right, we're going to start by putting the rocker blocks on. And you only saw these from a distance. So I thought I'd show you them close up. Alright, they're quite nicely made in aluminium. The rockers look quite nice as well. And they come with a little container like that, which had these in it. Now, I must have misread it, but I thought there were O-rings at each end of the shaft. But it doesn't appear they are. The only O-ring it mentions, there's these two small ones, is the one that goes on there. So, let me show you the oiling, because again it was a distance away. So the oil goes up there. There's the hole, comes into here. You see there's a nice groove there in the bottom to get the oil in. Then in the top there's an oil groove. There's that same oil groove to take it round. Then there's an oil groove at the top, look, from side to side, and that links those two little slots. So the oil's going to come in, go around that groove, get all over the shaft, go down the centre groove to each end, and then out. And these here are just 8 little spring washers. You know, the curved type, if you can see the curve on that. So let me go and put these on. Now I've already put the exhaust one on. As you know, we've had that on a couple of times already. So put the O-ring on. And that goes on there. Well, that's a remarkably loose fit. That one wasn't. Okay, so now then, let's put some oil in there. Put our rocker in the right way around. Make sure it goes into the push rod. There, we'll put some more oil on. Put that on the right way around, Michael. And that goes on. Then we have our 4 little dishwashers. Now, I don't know if there's a right or a wrong way to put these on, but I always put them on with the dish to the top. So they're going like that. And these are 1/4 inch BSC or BSF, both 26 threads per inch. I never thought I'd get round to putting these damn things on. Still haven't got over having 3 exhaust blocks. Now I don't know if there's a torque setting for these, but I'll just screw them down. Oh, that reminds me, carburetor, I've got to get a little blanking, one of those screw-in banking plugs for where the choke slide goes. Okay, nice and loose. I'm going to bring you around now so you can see where the valve adjustment is. Right, the engine's at top dead centre, and the correct top dead centre, because both cam followers are right down. Now, I showed you the push rods before, so you know that the adjusters are on the end of the push rods, just like on the AMC, the AGS and Matchless. And just like them, the setting is 0 clearance. Now, this leads to, do they mean 0 when it's hot? Do they mean 0 when it's cold? Blah, blah. So, the way I'm going to set them now cold, and basically what it says for AGS Matchless is you set them so that they don't lift up and down, but they're loose enough to spin like that. See, there's no, well, there is a little bit. I'll adjust that. You sort of don't want any up and down. In fact, let's adjust it now. See, that's feeling a little tight. That just nicely turns. Now, this one obviously has got far too much, so we will. Of course, the thing about setting these when they're hot, it's not so bad on a road bike, but we're going to have an exhaust pipe that's going to pass right in front of this. So I'm going to set them now cold, and then what I will do is, first time I take it and get it nicely up to temperature, I'll put some big gloves on and whip the exhaust pipe off and check them. Alright, there we go. See, they'll turn, but they won't go up and down. So let me do the lock nuts up, and then we'll put this cover on. Thought I'd better show this as well, because see, you've got nuts all over the place. So which one do you hold? Well, you want the bottom one while you turn the lock nut up. And then when the lock nut's up, you can tighten it up against the push rod, and that way you shouldn't have it change. So we still don't have any up and down, but it turns. So again, this is going to get a bit cack-handed here, but let's see if I can get in. I'm going to hold the bottom, because you see, you start turning it and you might turn this on here. Then we'll put the lock nut up. There isn't exactly a lot of space here either, until it's up against the push rod. As you can see, the push rod there is. Then we'll hold the push rod, and we'll tighten up the lock nut. No up and down, but it's loose to turn like that. Now then, the next thing is that goes in there. Oh, that's not very good. The thread looks fine. Yeah, that first thread isn't brilliant. Let me go and run a die down this, and I'll run a tap in this, put a bit of paper in here, but also on the tap, as you've seen me before, I'll put plenty of grease on so that it catches anything. And I'm only going to run the tap in enough to get it started. So let me go and tidy these threads up. Now then, as it happened, once I'd cleaned up that thread, they screwed in fine. I thought the ends didn't look brilliant. So I'm just going to put a little bit of blue Loctite on these. Well, on the end that screws into the... At least I said I am. Oh, ah! Bugger! You can't see this, but there was a little bit of Loctite dried out on the end, and now it's all over the place. Look, hang on. Hang on. As the saying goes, these things are sent to try us. Alright, well, that should just screw nicely into there. like so. Tight. And our usual bit of grease on here. You'll notice down in this bottom left hand corner there's a little dowel. I know, about 1/8 of an inch dowel. And that has a little hole in it, the gasket. Again, this softens it up a little bit all over this. Feel of this material, I don't know whether it will, but if nothing else, if I take it back off, it means the thing won't stick. Now the same here, look in the bottom corner, there's a little pin for the dowel, a little hole for the dowel, that goes on like that. Then we have another little plastic bags up there, it is. I do like these things. They have them, you know, on the... Tell you what, we'll put a little bit of grease on there as well, shall we? And hang on, let me get a 5/16 washer. 5/16. Nah, it looks horrible. An 8mm one. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll put a little star washer under it as well to be on the safe side. I don't know if it's supposed to have one. There now, doesn't that look better than having some nut? Pretty, pretty, pretty. Now the last thing to go on the head is I should say, so there's two of them, the valve covers. Now as I mentioned, for some reason the gasket set didn't come with gaskets for these, but fortunately in amongst the stuff I got there was a pair, well actually there's 4 of these gaskets. There you go on like this. Gaskets have been greased, stud threads have been greased, then there are this long type of nut, 3 long ones, whoop-ee, hope. 3 long ones, 1 short one, and as you can see I even lashed out and bought new ones of these, so they will go on there. I'll put the other one on and then I'll bring you back. So there they are on. Let's see if I've got enough zoom here to... Yeah, and there's our little nice cover at the bottom. Right, the next thing I'm going to put in are the rocker feeds. And I'll show you them. And we're going to start off doing the rocker feed at the bottom. So there's a couple of things I want to show you. The first is this. This is the banjo bolt, see the hole that goes in there. Now, the notorious one actually. If you take it out and you look in there for the ball and the spring and you think, oh, look at that, there isn't one. The ball and the spring are actually inside this. Spring goes first and then there's the ball. So don't worry, you haven't lost it, it's inside there. So let's put that in. Now the other thing is just above here, that's the oil line that's going to go up to the rockers. Now it should be one piece, but when they're really tightened down with all of these type of things, if they're the sort of cone type fitting, the compression type fitting, well it's not really compression because there isn't an olive, but this, the end of this is tapered and there's a cone shape in this. What tends to happen is when people tighten them down a lot, they get squeezed out and this nut will grip the copper pipe. This is only copper. Then this happens. When you try to take them off, they snap. Now, I'm not going to put a brand new oil line on because, as I've mentioned, I always like to be able to see the oil. So what I'm just going to do is put a small length of clear tubing on here, and then I can see that the rockers are getting the feed. Because, as I explained in the little video, if you watch that, this is a scavenge feed. It's literally the last thing. If the oil is going through here, it's basically getting right round the system. At least you know everything's full. I mean, it might still be bunged up in the crankshaft and everything, but at least if you're getting oil here, you know that it's gone through everything. So I'm going to leave that with a little piece of clear pipe. So I've got a little piece here, which is the right fit for this, so it's a tight fit on there. I'm just going to heat the end up and put it on there. By the way, here's a tool tip for you. How to get a free heat gun. Birthday or Christmas, you buy your significant other a new hairdryer. They're really pleased that you bought them something, and you snaffle the old hairdryer and use it as a heat gun. Now we come to the top end. Now here, the banjo bolts for the rocker feet don't screw straight into the head like everybody else's do. There's actually a brass, copper, whatever it is, insert that goes in there first. So let me screw the two of those in. Right, we've got them screwed in. So the next thing is the banjo bolt, for which there are those nice Doughty washers. I wonder if that Doughty's got anything to do with the Doughty Oleomatic forks that used to be on things like the Panthers. Well, the big Panthers anyway. So that one's going to go in there. And t'other one will go in this side. Right, let me get those tightened up. And there we go. It's got our banjo bolts in. A little bit of plastic tube there. Hose clip on it. So that's pretty good. Right, that's going to do me for today. And funnily enough, just had a delivery from Hitchcocks. I actually asked them this time, I said I'd pay the extra, please send it by courier. So I put the order in Sunday night, today Wednesday afternoon, so that's more like it. I don't mind paying the extra for 2 days instead of 9-10 days, which it can be. Okay, see you tomorrow. Right, good morning. Well, here's the stuff that arrived yesterday from Hitchcocks. Nice straight kickstart lever, and I'll tell you what, it's much nicer and better made than the other one I got. Somebody mentioned this a while ago. I had already. This is episode 19, as you know. Actually, as I'm doing this, the last one you've seen is 17, and that was just a few days ago, because the work's coming along at pace. So anyway, I got that to go on the cases. I got the little inspection cover that I'd forgotten, and some new little rubber snubbers that go on the bottom mounting of the tank. That is the blanking thing for the neutral finder, which somebody mentioned. There's the other piece of the clutch rod. There's the nut that goes on the end of the crankshaft. The reason I couldn't find it, of course, is it's not classed as a crankshaft nut. It's classed as a rotor nut. So there you go. And as soon as I was putting an order in, the 3/4 inch bolts that hold the pressure plate of the clutch on, I just bought new ones of those. So we'll start putting things on. But before, and a new big rubber O-ring type gasket for the chain case. So as I say, this is the next morning, and it's actually Thursday. So you saw the video on Sunday, number 17. I put the extra little one in on the Wednesday night, explaining the lubrication system, which is a while ago, and there were more comments. So one of them was about
the actual way the pumps work. So what I'm going to do at the end of this video is, sorry about the disembodied voice, I am here, look. At the end of this video, don't switch off, because what I'm going to do is put up a picture out of the bullet handbook that Enfield produced that explains how the oscillating oil pumps work. And so put it on pause and you can sit and read it, see the diagrams, and I'll be quite honest, if you completely understand it, you're a better man than I am. But anyway, know that's coming. Now this morning, while the heating was on, so it was making noises, I put the oil filter in, and it's all in the right order. Felt washers, oil seal, dish plates, solid washers, all the rest of it. So that's all in. I popped the cover off the gearbox because I'm going to talk about it in a minute. We're going to do the clutch push rod. Now while I had it off, Andreas noticed that although I put the quadrant on sort of the right facing way, I'd got it round 180 degrees, so the teeth on this part, instead of being against the teeth on the outer part, were like that. So it wouldn't have worked very well. Anyway, that's together. Also, I mentioned it in a comment because somebody had said about making new pillar bolts because the bolt didn't come all the way through the nut. The nuts on here, if I bought them, are very thin. So what I've done is the nuts that I put on, I put them in the lathe and I faced them off so that they're the right size. So now as you can see, it comes all the way out. I'll put some blue Loctite on again. Alright, so I think the first thing we'll do, just to finish off the timing chest and everything, is put our little Royal Enfield badge on. Now, this comes with those knock-in rivets. So we're going to put a little bit of a bend in that because the case is curved. Be careful so I don't make the paint come off. Side what's doing a bit. Oh, you can hear the paint. It's silver paint on it, so they're not brilliant. Okay, it also came with two of those tiny little washers, not washers, what are you talking about, Michael? Rivets. I don't know, can you see them? They have like a little squirrel on them. So there, you don't have to be behind. They're not really rivets as such, but they've got the right top. So that's going to go in there. One like that. Wouldn't it be good if when I looked at it now I put it on upside down? Ho ho ho. Of course the holes don't line up, which might be partly due to the fact that it's curved, but God, look at that. Bloody awful. There's about a 1/4 inch gap behind it. Yeah, you have to have the holes moved to fit on right. Yeah, I guess there's a little bit of leeway in it. Not brilliant, but it's there. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, well actually, I think we'll put the clutch on next. But what I'm going to explain now is about this. Now, let me just get the other bit. This is something that friends of mine in the UK long ago in the 60s did, and it's a thing that Don Morley talks about. If you go on Hitchcock's website and go into the sort of technical thing and look in the clutch part, there's reproduced there, I don't know, it's maybe from Motorcycle Mechanics or something, there's an article by Don Morley on the clutch and the clutch mechanism. And he mentions that the gearboxes are not brilliant, which they're not. But his view was that it was really mostly down to the poor operation of the clutch. Now, the original clutch rods were just that long without the end on. This is 1/4 inch, so let's say 250 thou. The drilling down the centre of the main shaft is, let's say, 260 thou, so it's a nice sliding fit. But because it's quite a heavy clutch and you're putting a lot of pressure on the ends when you try to press this through, these tend to bow out a little bit. They bend in the middle, and of course there isn't much space to bend, so they bind. So the mod to do, as I say, in the 60s, and very much advocated by Don Morley, he even uses the word sweet, I think, to describe the clutch pull after you've done the mod, is to take away the tendency for this to deform as you press on the ends. And the way you do that, of course, the longer this is, the more deformation you'd get. If this was 3 foot long and you pressed on the ends, it would probably deform by about 1 inch. So what we need to do is shorten this. But of course you can't shorten it because it's got to reach from one end to the other. So what you do is you cut it in two. You actually shorten it by 1/4 inch, and you put a ball, a steel ball, a ball bearing in there, a 1/4 inch ball bearing. That nicely fits in the tube. It means then you only have this length, which is nice and short and rigid, so it won't, and the same there. So we're actually going to have, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to shorten this actually by 1/2 inch, although when we do it you'll see I'm going to do it in stages, because I'm also going to put a ball between that end and there. So we'll have this in, pressing on the clutch, a ball, length of rod, ball, length of rod, and then, as you know, there's a ball in there. So it all should move nice and freely, and it shouldn't bind. But I think what I'll do is I'll start by putting the clutch on, push this in the other end, and we'll work from this end to make sure we get the lengths right. So let's go over the other side of the bike.
Well, Spot and I here are going to have to take it easy for a couple of days, because when the clutch rebuild kit was ordered, somebody ordered one for 3-plate clutch and not a 4-plate clutch. So we're going to have to wait for that. So I guess it's a case of stand by your beds.
Right, the bits came for the clutch. I tell you what, I'm not overly impressed with this parcel force, people. Still took a week to get here. They picked it up last Friday, it arrived this Friday. Admittedly there was one day closed for Thanksgiving, but it's not much. Anyway, the reason I wanted to show you it was, this is what happens when you live in the country, look, and they deliver it and leave it just outside the door. We have had small creatures having a go at this, but what's even more amazing is I was just talking to my neighbour, and he says this was delivered about 11 o'clock yesterday morning. We got back from Baltimore about 2:15, and I walked straight up and picked it up. So something ate that for lunch. Alright, let me get the bits out of there. Right, clutch. Now we've got the bits. So it's an Enfield clutch. It's got to be different. Don't forget that the clutch cage has friction material on both sides, and the clutch centre has the back, so we've got an effector plane and a friction plate already in there. So the plane plates, there are two types. There's a completely flat one, and there's one with a dish in it. Friction plates, there are two types. There's a multi-segmented one like that, and there's the more commonly seen one like that. Although, of course, for those of you with long memories, the old ones used to be like this, and they were little cork inserts, and things like Motorcycle News and Motorcycle Mechanics and what have you would have the how to get your home things, where you'd use a piece of cork out of, you know, a wine cork to replace them. And then finally, of course, there are the springs. I don't know if this will show up, but there are 6 springs on this one. And you'll see, or you might be able to see, that the gauge of the wire, this is lighter gauge than that. So of the 6 springs, I've got 3 heavy, 3 lighter. Okay, so how does it go together? Alright, well, as I say, we've got friction material at the back here. So the first thing is a plain plate. So one of the dished ones goes in first, with the dish to, shall we say, the centre of the clutch. So that goes in. Then we put in the multi-segmented one. Then we put in a flat plain plate. Then the ordinary type friction plate. Another flat plain plate. Another ordinary type friction plate. Now, although these may not look it, these are all brand new. These are the ones that came from Hitchcocks. Then there's another dish plate, again with the dish pointing towards the centre. Then finally one last one of those. So now our cage is full. And then the pressure plate goes on. So before we put the pressure plate on, we're going to put a little bit of oil in here. And we're going to put our 1/4 inch ball bearing in. And then we're going to put the little mushroom ended piece in there. Now then that goes on. And there are 3 little pieces that go on there. That's why these holes are so much bigger, because they go on. Because with the Enfield clutch, it's not like trying for the BSA, for instance, where you can adjust the tension on the springs. This gets just bolted up tight. That goes there. Then here's our sort of spring pressure plate. That's got these 3 things on. So what we'll do is we'll put the light springs on those 3. Is that a light spring? Yeah. And then we'll put the heavier springs on there. And that way they're evened out. Just dropped them. So they're going to go on like that. And of course it's one of those clutches where you've got to compress it a bit to get the bolt in, which I hate. So I'm going to get right in front of the camera to get at these, so let me switch you off. We're going to bolt them on like that. Right, well these springs proved to be too much for my little old man hands, so we've improvised. We went into the bolts bin because I didn't have many 1/4 inch BSF/BSC, and the couple I could find were too long, and I didn't want to cut them, so I've just put a couple of nuts under. So what I've done is I've compressed this with 2, and then hopefully the 3rd one will go in, and then we'll work our way around replacing them. There we go. Where there's a will, there's a way. So we've put that one in. Hopefully this all works. Take that one out. Again, look at that. Oh, it's so. I'm going to have to move you because you're right in the way.
There, I've got the second one to catch. So we'll wind these two in, and hopefully now we can just take this last one out. Still going to be awkward. Oh no. That one's cut quite quickly. So alright. There we go. Now then. I'll show you. I'll just show you a couple of things. But that's as much as we're going to get to do, because I have to go out and put the snow chains on the tractor. This is Saturday. You know, this week was Thanksgiving week here in the US, so we went down to Baltimore, which is about 300 miles away, where Linda's son and daughter, both of their families are. So we went down to them. So that, as I say, has brought us to Saturday, and according to the weather forecast, tomorrow we're going to get about 8 inches of snow, and then Monday we're going to get about another 5 inches of snow. So I've got to make sure the tractors are all ready, with nice treated diesel in it and the snow chains on. So we're not going to get round to doing the push rod, the clutch push rod today. So that goes on there, okay. Go up against the stops. You know, being as this is just a trials bike, I might end up putting the those springs are almost coil bound, you know that? Well, we'll see when we get the clutch push rod on. But that's the right clutch pack. Okay, so what else was I going to say? Alright, while I was ordering that, I noticed that, you remember I was talking about putting, oh, you can't see that, can you? No. No, you can't. You remember I was thinking about putting a little rubber pad on the adjuster bolt for this? Well, I noticed that the newer ones, that the adjuster bolt has a little rubber bit built into it. So I thought I'd get one of them. So while I was getting one of them, I thought I might as well buy the actual pad thing, because I noticed that unlike the original one, which is just steel, they have a pad as well. But with, you know, look at that. Look at that nice cast steel one, and that's just a bit of plate bent round the end with that welded on. Okay, so showing you that. What else? Whoa, nearly knocked you over. You notice this being nickel plated. And last but by no means least, let me take you around the other side. While I was waiting for those clutch bits, I painted the prop stand and put it on, and I painted the rear mudguard stay. So that's all on as well. So we're getting really, really close. Oh, also, can you see it? Yep. The new sprocket came. So that's on. Chain line's perfect and everything. So, okay. As I say, that's it for this week. Let me go and get ready for snow. See you next week, and in the meantime, you enjoy yourselves.